Alright guys, we are back. I just wanted to show you that we had the board mounted and kind of wanted to show you how we're going to finish up the rest of these. One thing I want to remind you, and you saw me, I put separate holes here, and the reason why I did separate holes is so you don't get these confused, especially with these being the same colored wires. You're going to confuse them if you don't. So always do separate holes. Here's basically how we're going to wire this. The red and black on the side, remember we marked it power. We're going to run that directly to power. I'm going to run it right here. If you see VCC, that stands for positive. GND stands for ground or negative. Black is negative. It'll go in the ground. VCC will be positive, and then I'll go to the red. Now that is only for this front plate right here, okay? Which I need to dust it off. That does not give you power to your actual amplifier. And so to get power to your amplifier, remember we got one of these DC inputs and I showed you how to figure out whether it's positive or negative. You're going to have to run one of those to the back panel, which I've done. And you're going to hook these up, which I've done. And you're going to cut these to length once you figure out how long you need. And those will also plug into the same VCC and ground. Red for VCC, black for ground. So there will be 4 wires in there. 2 red going into VCC and 2 blacks going in the ground. Now I will show you this when it's completed, but I wanted to kind of show you what it looks like outside of the box first. Now, great thing is, this one that goes to the amp, which is right here, these 3 wires right here, they just plug in right here, and that's why I went ahead and did the screw terminals. Now we will run a small wire bridging the 2 grounds, which will go where it says ground. We're going to run one of these black wires to one ground, which would be right here. And then we're going to run a wire that bridges those 2 grounds together. The ground does have to have a ground, and I'll show you that. That I'm going to do in just a second. Hook up some of these. This is the line in right here. And that's for like an auxiliary line in jack, 3.5 millimeter jack that you can plug like your phone right up to. This I'm probably going to run underneath the amplifier and put some drops of hot glue on it. And that is also on the back of my thing. Now one thing you want to keep in mind, see I've run a red, a white, and a black, and black for me is always negative, okay? I try not to ever have anything other than black be negative. Now, red for me is always going to be channel 1 and white's channel 2. On this particular unit, it actually says channel 1 and channel 2, and it's just said CH1, CH2. That's important, and the reason why that's important is because you want to make sure that if you run any other inputs or anything, all of them that say channel 1 and channel 2 are going to channel 1 and channel 2. Like if you, let me find it on the board. There you go. See how it says out 1 and out 2? So you want to make sure that your channel 1s and out 1s are all going to be matched up. So in this particular instance, I'm just going to match the red to the red, the white to the yellow, and the black to the black. Color of the wire doesn't really matter. It's just what I'm planning to use. And so same with this, since we know that the red we're going to be designating channel 1, we're going to put the red into channel 1 and the yellow into channel 2, and that would be on the positive CH2, and then the black will go into grounds. Okay, so just keep it consistent. Keep whatever one you're going to be channel 1, make it consistent, and then that will be designated with out 1 and 2. And the thing is, if you, for example, switch these around, like if you put channel 1 and you got it wrong, right? Like channel 1 was actually right or left, which you can do with test tones or things of that nature. All you have to do is switch the outputs here. Okay, so switch whatever speaker is here to here, and this one and vice versa. Now, the last thing we have to wire up is the speakers. Now, the speakers are going to be a little different. Let me kind of show you what's going to happen with the speakers. That's because we're running a baffle step corrector on there. We're going to run these here on either side, and they're going to be glued. Now that's the resistor and the inductor that we bought. I'm just going to show you on this side. You know, you can twist these together. Basically, you got to solder to this. Now you're only going to solder the red wire from the speaker. So you're going to solder the red wire coming from the speaker to one end, and the other end you're going to solder another red wire, and you're going to run it into either one of these outputs on the positive side, okay? The negative side of the speaker, so the one that's ground negative on the speaker, does not get soldered in here. It just goes directly to the board. So it goes from the speaker to the board, okay? The positive goes through the inductor and the resistor. One thing to note, I'm going to take this out for a second so you can see it. If you notice, these ends are silver. You can cut these down to whatever length you want or need. The only thing you're going to want to pay attention to is if you take a look, the inductor eventually turns into a gold wire down there. You can kind of see it down here. Do not solder the gold, okay? So don't cut it so short that you're trying to solder the gold on there. If you do that, you're basically going to have to scratch some of it off and you change the actual size of the inductor, okay? So the gold part is important because that's the part that's actually making this a 0.90 inductor. So don't scratch off the gold, just keep the silver parts and solder those, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and start hooking this up, and when I get done, I will show it to you, and we will take a look at what it looks like. Oh, and I'm sorry. And this right here, we are going to glue down with just some hot glue, okay? We'll glue the resistor on there so that it resists vibrations, and we're going to glue the inductor to the bottom. Alright guys, give me a second and I'll get back and we'll show you what everything looks like hooked up.